Hello, welcome to my talk, Don't Ship the Wrong Game. Thank you for coming here. It's about a framework for choosing what to finish. It's showing up, that's great. There are a few key assumptions in this talk. They are that we have a commercial intent in making games, so it's not just for fun. We want to do it long-term and sustainable, so we want to live basically off of the games and keep making more. And we are indie, so this is all from the perspective of an indie developer and maybe also most useful to other indie developers, I'm not sure. I'm René, I started and run Bits. We are an indie studio from Germany, 6 people now and a bunch of freelancers also. We shipped one game called Domekeeper. It was quite successful on Steam, so that started as a 2-person project, and we sold over 1 million units so far, so 1.4, something like that. And we are working on our second game called PVKK, Planetenverteidigungskanonenkommandant, which is also doing quite well on Steam. So that's what we are working on. A quick overview over this talk. First want to describe how we work. And then I'll describe what I think of as a wrong game and how we avoid it. And then I'll spend some time also explaining how we prototype, because it feels like also that this is an art in itself, like how to make a good prototype. And then maybe the most interesting part, I'm not sure, how we validate a prototype. So making sure, like, is it good? Should we continue with this? Disclaimer here, all of these are my opinions and my experience, and everything I say could be wrong. So don't just trust me, it's up on you to take value out of this related to your own experience. Yeah. And it's also not a template to make every type of game. So if you make a grand strategy game, this approach is probably not for you. There are generally always exceptions, so to every framework or rule or whatever. And I also like to be challenged on this. So if I say something and you disagree or wonder how this relates to a different context or whatever, please challenge this in the questions round afterwards. Okay, I want to motivate this first by describing how we made Domekeeper. Domekeeper started as a game jam game in Ludum Dare. So we made a game in 3 days from scratch. This was the one and only kind of documentation design I did for this. And the text I only added so you can understand what it is. Like, it didn't even have the text. But you can already see kind of, if you know the game, you can already see nearly everything that's in there. And this is what came out after these 3 days. So basically you are this little miner astronaut. You go to dig for resources, you bring them up to your dome, and there you can buy upgrades. But you can also, or you have to defend your dome against these attacks from these monsters. And with that game jam game, as is usual with game jams, you release the game. So other people in the game jam can try it out. And it's also released on itch.io. And with that, we already had a lot of validation. So for one, we had the Ludum Dare ratings, just people giving basically a star review to several categories. Then we, of course, had written feedback, so what players were writing about the game, if they liked it, what they liked about it, what they didn't like so much. And we noticed, okay, so this is an experience designed for 10 minutes, and people keep playing this for an hour or more, or play it over several days. So at that point, even on the prototype, we noticed, okay, this is different than the 9 other game jam games we made before, because this was our 10th. And we really noticed, okay, there's something special about this. So, the reception is different. And with this validation, we stopped the project we were currently working on while not doing game jams. And we went out to refine and improve Domekeeper. Yeah, then we were building towards a Steam Next Fest demo, as are probably many of other developers. We didn't really end up releasing that in Next Fest, but there was this one Steam sale, games made in Germany, and we just had this demo lying around. We didn't plan on releasing it, but then thought, yeah, okay, we have this demo, why not release it? So we did. There was 0 marketing associated with that. And it kind of blew up. It blew up on YouTube. So Retromation was the first one to make a YouTube video. The YouTube video did well on his channel. And then other YouTubers started also playing this game because they also want to make content that does well, like that gets more than average views. And that was a good week for us. So we had a good old 57,000% increase in wishlists in that week, which also means one thing, that we didn't get many wishlists before. So this was basically the wishlist graph before. And if you look very closely, you can see small bumps in the first 9 months of this project. And I did try to market the game there, but only really releasing the demo did push this. A shout out to Clemmy Games, who's responsible for this small bump here. That was one of the happiest days of my development career. I thought this was our breakthrough because, yeah, if it's flat before and then you have a day with 200 wish lists, it's crazy good. By the way, this is all, like some people like to validate with social media. They like to share their games on social media and pick their projects like that. And I think that Dome Keeper and a lot of other games, maybe like Brotato, are probably not very social media friendly in that sense. So if you only look at social media and this is the sole thing you base on what game you want to make, you miss out on a lot of games, I think. So we should not have made Dome Keeper if we looked at social media traction. Which can also mean I'm just bad at social media. It doesn't need to mean Dome Keeper could not possibly do well. Okay, but yeah, with this demo release, we had a lot of demo validation too. So we knew, okay, this game has a broad appeal. There were not 500 people interested, but maybe 50,000. It had some virality, both on Steam and on YouTube. And many people did have fun watching this. So and we didn't know that before. We knew like some people had fun, but not at that scope. So another validation point. Yeah, then we basically just upgraded the graphics, made more content for it. At the end, it looked like this. We released one more demo, and then it was off to release. And the release really went well. So the players liked it a lot. It was around 90% positive ratings. And Dome Keeper reached the place 7, basically, in the total top sellers. Only for a short time, though. But it was still quite insane for us, as it was still like a 2-person project with some freelancers. Yeah, so this was the stages I just described, mapped out. So it was a gem game, then we refined the prototype, and then the 2 demos, then the release. And what's important here is the durations. How long did we spend on each? So on the gem game, as I said, 3 days. And then the refinement of the prototype was about 8 weeks. This was still done in our spare time because I was working full-time in another job. And then we went into production for 9 months. And then it was off to release. And during that time, we basically gradually increased who got access to the game. And we didn't wait half a year before someone played our prototype, right? It was basically after 3 days. And then we never stopped having people in and try what we are working on. So we stayed close to the players, very close. And as I said, all these basically releases, or whatever you want to call it, these were really important validation points for us, where we learned something, where we could kind of readjust our plans for the game, or just gain some security, basically knowing people are interested in this. And from this, I kind of tried to formalize it as our framework. It's not something like completely novel or crazy or something like that. It's just the way we work, kind of written down. And it's also important that we didn't make this framework and then try to fit into that framework. It's just a documentation of how we were working anyway. And as I said, we have this prototype, and in there are all these validation points. And at these validation points, we do decide if we want to kill this project. And that's always a real option. Abandoning the project, no one is interested in this, let's not do it. It's also a good point to adjust the scope. And as a second stage here, I have what I made up. I'm not sure if it's a good name, but I called it a core fancy. It's really important. This is not a vertical slice, and I don't think you should build a vertical slice at this point. Basically, you just need the core of the game ready to play, to deliver on the experience that you intend, or at least in parts, but it needs to look fancy enough that you can show it to people. And this is really different than the vertical slice. A vertical slice usually should contain all the features, but I'll show that later. On PVKK, we only had like 30% of the features in this core fancy. Yeah, and of course, yeah, we can also announce the game, and announcement can also be a validation point in its own. Okay, now for PVKK, that's our current game, Planetenverteidigungskanonenkommandant. And if you're not aware, there are two ladies sitting there simultaneously translating everything I say into French. So French people can listen to this. So every time I say Planetenverteidigungskanonenkommandant, they also have to say Planetenverteidigungskanonenkommandant. So if you're only English speaking and you want to listen to a French talk, you can actually do that. And then they have very beautiful voices and do a great job. So I can recommend that. Planetenverteidigungskanonenkommandant. For PVKK, the structure was this. We also built a prototype, or I did actually. It looked like this. It looks very simple, but it already had a lot of things you can now see in the full game. Yeah, this prototype, we didn't do something with it for a few years, and then we were like, okay, what do we want to do after Dome Keeper? And we thought, okay, one other guy in the team, Rafa, he said, yeah, I also like this a lot. So we set out to kind of refining it and building the core fancy, and that looked like this. And if you look closely, you still have this kind of wheel and all these flip switches and such. So it's still quite similar, but it doesn't look very similar. And this, as I said, only had a fraction of the features the full game needs. Maybe 30%, maybe less. And of course, also content-wise, it was super thin compared to the full game. But it looked fancy enough, and you could already play it and experience what this is about. And with PVKK, we did the announcement, basically with the core fancy. And then the announcement was so successful in itself that this was also a really big validation point, which meant for us, okay, we don't need to rush to get the demo out because, yeah, we know people are interested now and enough people are interested. Now we just have to deliver on this promise. Okay, now to the part, don't ship the wrong game. What does it mean? What's a wrong game? A wrong game is basically one that makes you have to close the studio or stop making more games. So we all want to make games that earn some money so that we can make more games. And to me, this sometimes, if I see that, it's sometimes painful because in some cases it feels like, yeah, this you could have known this 2 years in advance that this will probably not work out. I have 3 types of wrong games. I'm going to go through them. Type 1 is undesired. So that's basically a game that releases and no one was really waiting for that game. No one really wants to play this and nothing's happening. There are some symptoms for these games. What you can see here is a follower chart from SteamDB. Follower chart correlates very closely to wish lists. And the numbers here are that I highlighted as 195 followers. So it maybe has 2,000 wish lists. And it didn't move a lot to release. And 2,000 wish lists is probably too little for most commercial games. So there are two things to note, basically the absolute number, but also the traction of this. Yeah, and what's a symptom of this undesirable game? It basically has no positive validation throughout the development cycle. You don't see a big spike in wish lists. No matter what happens, there's no, I don't know, yeah, positive validation in the sense that metrics are showing this, or that players go crazy or whatever. And the launch also is unsustainable. So 35 people for most commercial games will not be enough. What could be the cause of that? The game was never validated against the market. It can easily happen that you make a plan, yeah, let's make this game, sit down for 3 years, make this, release this, and then after 3 years, no one cares. Or maybe we did try to validate this. Maybe we put out a demo, maybe we put out an announcement trailer, but no one cared about this. No one played the demo, but we still kept on developing this game. But I think if no one cares for your demo, no one will care for your full game. So in that spot, yeah, if we have a demo that has no traction, we really have to think hard if we want to spend 2 more years making this into a finished game, or if we should rather make something else that shows promise. And how do we avoid this? Yeah, I basically already showed this before. Validation points. At these we can say, yeah, do we want to kill this project? Is it not really gaining any traction? An alternative to that can be pivoting, like changing something in the game to make it more desirable. But I also think there's a risk in trying to bend and hammer a game until finally someone wants it. The alternative is just to do a different game, basically. Type 2, misaligned. That basically means there are a lot of people who want what they thought you were making, but what ended up releasing is something different. Basically, there was a vision of the game that was also communicated, but the game that released is something else somehow. And you can see here, I think this was an example for me that fit this type. It has over 12,000 followers, so maybe 150,000 wishlists, which is great, which should work for an indie team. Yeah, and the symptoms for this is that there is a lot of positive validation in the dev cycle, that the metrics are good, like lots of wishlists, lots of excitement, positive comments, and also the launch day might be decent, but it dies off quickly. And you also see this in this follower chart. The follower chart after release basically flatlines. On release, it's still this big jump, which is great, but then nothing happens. And on a healthy game, it looks more like this. You also have this jump on release, but then it should go up and not flatline. And what can be the causes of this? Communications on this game are of somehow, and it's super hard to make a Steam page that tells people exactly what this is and don't have them mistake this for something else. And we struggle with that also with Domekeeper. Like Domekeeper always gets this user tag, tower defense, even if we remove it. But people want to believe this is a tower defense game, even though it only shares like 5% of the DNA of a tower defense game. But it's still somehow a tower defense game. And that's a challenge in communication. So and then if someone who really likes the tower defense game and comes and wants to play Domekeeper, they will be disappointed because it's not delivering on being a tower defense game. It can also happen that the developers did not understand or respect player sentiment. And that's also not easy to do right, because players will tell what they like and what they dislike. But there's also this push and pull, because as a developer you have this vision for the game, you want to make this thing, and sometimes people are like, yeah, but I liked another thing more, and then it's like, okay, you just didn't understand my grand vision for this game, so but I'm still making this, and this can backfire, and there has to be some sort of compromise. And what's also a really interesting risk, I think, is validation and playtest only with a closed in-group. And this game, I kept it anonymous, but I think this happened for them, that they had these, I don't know, 30, 50 people on their Discord, and they playtested the game with them for 2 years. And these 50 people had a lot of fun. But the only reason they had fun is because they already had 200 hours of experience in this game. So on release, new people came in and they couldn't really handle the game. It was way too difficult. It was not easy to pick up. It had all these hardcore mechanics that were not fun for most people. So, and there's a risk. So it's incredibly important to keep testing basically first-time user experience. How do people who never saw this game before react to it? How do they pick this up? For the last bit, for the last type, I will mention something called experience, or that I call experience goals. That's basically just describing what should the player who plays this experience, how should the game feel, what should it deliver on. And there can be some overlap with design pillars, but it's not the same. Usually player experience goals come a little bit before that, and they don't speak much about mechanics, for example. So, and how do we avoid this type? Basically this misaligned type, where we made something that people don't want, although they kind of were sold on this concept. Yeah, we stick to this that I showed before. Okay, we have to open up the game. Throughout the dev cycle, we have to open up the game to more and more people and get this feedback. And then it's really important that in this discovery phase, in this early phase of making the game, we do get a really great grasp on what is this game and what do people like about it. I think it's also really valuable to define those experience goals, like what should the player experience be, what's important for them, and not so much go by feature lists. And also, of course, you want to align the team to this vision. If everyone has a really good understanding of what the game is, it becomes so much easier to make a good game fast. Yeah, and then when making the game, you want to build for the players. And with that, I mean, again, you might have this vision of this game. You might want to tell something. You might want to have the player experience something. But it's so important to respect the feedback the players give, and kind of step a little bit back on the ego of building a game, and building something where the first goal is that it should be fun for the players, and not that it satisfies my kind of designer wishes or something like that. I already said, keep playtesting. That's incredibly important and helps avoid making a misaligned game. Keeping it playable throughout this whole process. If you have something that's playable and that works after 3 days, for example, after a game jam, that's an incredible advantage over many teams who maybe only have something to play after a year of work. Because if you notice after a year of work, it's not fun and no one wants this, yeah, you spend a year on this. So it's very, very useful to have this, but also then to keep it playable. Yeah, and checking against experience goals really helps with the scope, because then it's not so much about features, it's about, okay, does this thing we are making right now fit into this player experience we are aiming for? And I had this with Dome Keeper. Dome Keeper has these upgrades, and initially I designed these upgrades in a way where you would get a big benefit out of an upgrade, but also a small drawback. So you really have to think about, okay, yeah, it's getting a little bit, this is getting a little bit worse, but this other thing is getting way better. And people didn't like it. They didn't want those hard upgrades that also give you a slight drawback. They only wanted the good stuff. They only wanted to get stronger and better and without any drawbacks. And I relented. I thought, okay, this is a less interesting design, but they want it, and I'm gonna deliver it to them. And now with a little, and I thought my first variant would have made the more interesting game. But now with basically 3 years in between, I can realize, okay, Dome Keeper is a very simple game where you don't really want to think too much about the upgrades. And I didn't understand that back then. I thought, okay, yeah, it's more interesting if you have interesting upgrades and have to think about 2 minutes what to do and what not to do. But the players were right, and I didn't see it. But I still listened to them because I was building it for them and not for myself. Okay, type 3 of wrong game, overdeveloped. The thing, there's the key thing there is, we have a game where people are interested in, and this game could work out, but we spent 7 years, went over budget, and now we have no chance of recouping, because the game's not big enough to carry this. So we were set up for success, but production ballooned, and now we are bankrupt. And the symptoms of that is we have positive validation. We have wish lists, metrics, whatever, but not on crazy levels, just solid. We have a solid audience, but we made this a huge multi-year project. And suddenly the game cost 10 times as much as it needed to cost, and it would not make 10 times the money. Okay, what can be the causes of this? It can be that we just love the game too much, that we cannot let go, that we want this to be perfect, and that we are never really satisfied with, okay, it's not at the vision I had for this game yet. Can also be we have too little production constraints. If you have a deadline and you have to deliver this at this deadline, this might help. But if you if you don't have these constraints, it's very easy to keep adding months and years to this project. It can also be that we are an insecure or opinion volatile dev. That we redo stuff over and over again. I've seen this in some games that basically have for example, have a combat system, and every 2 years the lead designer doesn't like the combat system anymore and revamps it and makes it something new. And then it takes 8 years, but in actuality they made like 4 games in that 8 years and not one. And what I also saw quite often is an overspend on art. That's a dangerous thing also, because for some games, having fantastic art is great. And for other games, it's nice, but it doesn't change like the commercial success of the game fundamentally. Some games do really well with very simple art. For example, Schedule 1, which was just an insane hit. The developer could have spent 3 more years on trying to make photorealistic 3D art for this. But no one cares about this. And the game would not have sold more if it had nicer looking graphics, I think. So, but that's a risk, especially if you have artists in your team full time. You want to put them to work, right? And that can cost a lot without the same benefit. Yeah. How do we avoid this? Again, we take this basically framework and we use the validation points to inform the scope of the next step. So if a crazy amount of people enjoyed our demo, we can have a generous scope for release. If few people enjoyed our demo, we should not take 3 more years until we release this. What also helps with this is that we retain the prototyping spirit. So everything that we do, how we develop prototypes, we keep up for production. Flexible scope, of course. So if you don't have a flexible scope, you cannot change the scope after each validation point. So that's super important. And yeah, what also helps is go by experience goals. Sometimes it becomes kind of easy to cut a feature because you can see that it doesn't contribute so much to these experience goals. And that's not necessarily true if you just look at the feature list, because every feature seems valuable. Okay, maybe there's also type 4, like the game shipped well, but now everyone is sad and burnt out. Maybe it worked out commercially, but it doesn't work sustainably long-term as a studio. But I'm not going to talk about this one. Okay, these were the 3 types of wrong I wanted to talk about, and now I want to go into some specifics. Making a prototype, validating a prototype. Yeah, how do we make a prototype? This is how our prototypes look like. In this case, that's all Game Jam games that we made in 3 days for Ludum Dare each time. It's like work amount wise, it's more realistic to say a week, because it's 3 days, but really we work like 40 hours in these 3 days because it's fun. We have a few guidelines that help us with this. And I showed this because I hope it's clear that we must have some learnings and some process behind this in order to make a kind of polished game in 3 days. Yeah, and I have 3 prototyping guidelines I wanted to share. So one is keeping it simple. It's not a it's not a revelation, but it's not easy to do. The key thing here is that speed beats everything. If it's stupid and unoptimized, but works after a few minutes, that's amazing. That's exactly what we want to have. And there's a little bit of a challenge there to lose some pride in the craft, because as artists or engineers, you also take a lot of joy and pride in making it good and right. But that's not right for prototyping. You have to make it crappy and fast and move on. And I did this wrong. I have an example. This many years ago, actually. That was 2012. That's not my game. That's a game I was inspired by, basically a Robinson Crusoe-like game. And I wanted to make something similar, but of course I wanted to make it better. So I built this, and that had very little gameplay. I could walk around as this little human, but I didn't know how big the map needed to be. And I had this height map also. It's a 3D height map, and it's not a flat land. It has valleys and hills. And I didn't know how large the map needed to be. So what I ended up doing is implement a chunking system that basically could handle arbitrary sizes. So I would be, from a technical point, completely flexible later for the design. And I had this height map that had no purpose. But then I thought, okay, I could now, with this height map, add a water mechanic. So I added this water mechanic with water flow. And that took me like half a year. And then I was kind of burnt out on this project because it had no gameplay. It was not fun. No one could play it. And I just built a whole lot of tech. And that was really stupid. And I should have, instead of spending months on this kind of flexible technical system, I should just have used a very stupid thing of, okay, let's say the map is 500 by 500 tiles, and let's try this. Maybe it's even too large. So I didn't know what I needed, so I built it flexible, which was a big mistake. So, and the key thing there is we have to clarify the requirements as soon as we can. Like, how big does the map need to be? Or if we cannot do this, we stay super simple. And in prototyping, we don't know what we are building yet. So we cannot clarify early. So we should probably make everything really stupid and really simple. And one example where I did this right, this is from Dome Keeper. I'm not sure. Oh, it's a little bit dark. Yeah, basically, in Dome Keeper, you have this dome on top, and then you can go underground and mine. So you have this big mine underneath. And then the question is, okay, how does this look? How does this mine look? It should be procedurally generated, I guess. But I also knew full procedural generation that I thought that was a month of work. And I didn't really know at the beginning of the project what types of mine do I need? Are there variations? What size do we need? What's most fun? So instead, I built this, and this is from the prototype, and this is very simple. It's basically just 3 layers, and I handmade 3 variants per layer, and I flipped those horizontally and put them together. So that was the mine. So that was only a few hours of work. And all the players thought this was procedurally generated. They could not tell the difference. And for the prototype, that was perfect because I can easily, like if I think the resource distribution is too dense, I can very quickly go in, hand make what I think is better, and test it out. So through playtests, I did learn what makes a good map, what variants are interesting, and what map sizes do we actually need. And I did this basically before I built the complex technical system. But then after I learned this, I did build procedural generation. And it puts out maps like these. Like in the middle, you have a maze-like map. On the right, you have a very small map. On the left, a normal map, whatever. And it took a month of work. But I think if I had tried this first, I would have taken a month and then 4 times more a month to change it, basically after I learned what I actually needed. Okay, next guideline. Is there an alternative shortcut solution? So sometimes there's a very easy and quick alternative that has a similar effect to what we want to achieve. And that's true for programming, design, art, audio, basically for everything. And I have one example from the second game jam I ever did, where you are this hamster and you are on this task of earning sunflower seeds so your offspring can eat and nourish themselves. And there was this question, okay, now you earn those sunflower seeds. How do they get into this cage? And I thought, okay, yeah, in real life, so this cage would probably have something like a ramp where a person from the outside pours in sunflower seeds. And this was not in an engine, this was a framework, libGDX. And it took quite long to kind of build this static collider object where the sunflower seeds could slip down, and then I had trouble with friction and such. But after maybe 4 hours of work in a 3-day game jam, I got it to work. Okay, sunflower seeds were coming in. Then I realized, okay, now I also need an art asset for this. Now I needed the art to tell my wife, who was basically my companion in this. Okay, make this ramp. And by that I realized, okay, this is stupid. I cannot spend 4 hours of my time and 2 hours of her time in a 3-day game jam on a feature how exactly the sunflower seeds get into this cage. It was completely irrelevant for the gameplay. And what I did then, so that's basically your house. And then you go to work, which is of course running in the wheel. And the solution was, just drop the sunflower seeds in from the top, which was a solution that took 0 minutes to implement, basically. That was super simple. And I could have saved these 4 hours easily. So, and that was the alternative shortcut. Like I had this thought how I wanted to solve this, and immediately went into solving this. But I should have taken a step back and thought about, okay, is there something else I could do that's cheaper, that's achieving maybe 80% of what I need, or even 100%. So, and the last one, 80% is enough. And that's again, basically killing the pride a little bit. It just has to be good enough. We save time and we move on. And if we want to improve this, we can revisit it later in the game jam. And the spoiler alert for this is we never revisit it. We always have other stuff to do. And there are very few exceptions to saying 80% is good enough. And I had one example that I found curious in Dawnkeeper. So this is the loadout for Dawnkeeper, where you basically choose with the equipment with which you go into this run. And maybe you don't see something that's obviously wrong here. And there's something that's not even at 80%, maybe at 40% actually, which is this background world. So this is how this looked. And this is how a background world normally looks in Dawnkeeper. And maybe you can see it's much more detailed. And the reason is that this was just a very quick sketch to test out basically the layering. So Anne, my wife, did it in, I don't know, a few hours, did a layering sketch just to test this concept, how we could render a world before we actually made more worlds. And these worlds, they take maybe 2 weeks to make, depending on who's working on this. So I had this only in as a placeholder until we could produce a proper background world. And we never got around to doing it because other stuff was way more important. But no one ever complained. No one, I'm not even sure who noticed that this is not in quality. And that was really curious to me because that's not even at 80% level. And we could have easily spent 1 or 2 more weeks trying to make this nice, but it doesn't matter. No one notices. Yeah, these were the prototyping guidelines. Okay, now to the last part. One of my favorites, validating a prototype. Is it good? Is it bad? We only have one way to find out. And that was our first Game Jam game. Let people play your game. Especially unfriendly internet people. It's really enlightening to see that. And we learn with every playtest. And I did have a ton of playtests in my life. And I never had a playtest where I thought we should have waited a month or half a year before making this playtest. And plenty of times I thought we should have done this playtest earlier. And we are already doing it quite early. So we are working weeks on this or a few months, and then we already have playtests. So that should maybe, hopefully, tell you something. Because the thing is, you can learn from every playtest. And it's also super motivating as developers to see people play your game. That's amazing, especially because you also see what needs improvement. So you immediately get ideas, what you want to change, what you want to improve, what you want to tackle. So that really gives very quick a good guideline what to focus on next. Yeah, and then for validating, the key thing for us is we want to form a holistic view. We want to take as many sources of kind of validation and put them together and combine them into a full picture. And this is not expressible in a number or something like that. It's more of a feel that you need to basically judge. I want to skip this. Yeah, Ludum Dare results. So if you make a game jam, other people in the game jam will play and rate this game. And we will play and rate their games. And I have one example. So we made Dome Romantic was it called back then, before it became Dome Keeper, which was just a pun on Dorfromantik. And we also had this game in a later game jam. And in this game, you are this fennec farming for lavender. And then you can also hire these little friends that help you farm. So they bring out seeds and harvest the lavender for you. But at night, evil gnomes come and trample your lavender and steal your friends. They carry them away. So what can you do as a fennec? You pull out your magnum and shoot the gnomes, of course. And so it's a little kind of farming automation game. And it's very cute. And these were the results. So on the right, you see lavender fields. And in every category, it was rated better than Dome. And that was also reflected in the player comments. People enjoyed it just a lot. But the key difference is Dome had way more ratings. And that's why I think Dome is actually the better result, because the game has so much more pull. We basically did the same marketing-wise, but for Dome, nearly 300 people came in and to play this, basically by themselves. They were just like, they saw an image or GIF of the game and they said, yeah, I want to play this. And this happened much more than with Lavender Fields. And having this is way more valuable than having made a good game already in 3 days. Because you can improve a game a lot. Iteration is key. You can make it more fun and more fun. But having a fantasy that appeals to many, many people, that's much harder. And also, you cannot predict it, really. So releasing it for the Game Jam also means releasing it on itch.io, which is a small but very friendly internet platform, basically like Steam, just smaller. And there you can, or people can rate your game. They can write a little review, they can give you a star rating. And they can also put your game into these collections. That's basically lists that they can make of games for any purpose they like. It's a little bit like a wish list, but not necessarily. It's browser games to try. They just bookmark it for the future, or it's a collection, or something they want to share, a curated list. And this looks like that, basically. That, okay, we have now, we made plenty of Game Jam games, and we have them all on itch. And there we can see the views, how often was it played. We also have them playable in the browser. So there might be 20,000 downloads, but there might be 150,000 browser plays, if it's 200,000 views or something like that. And with that, I thought, okay, we can kind of measure engagement with this assumption that if you desire this game, if you have an emotional connection to this game, you are more likely to rate and review this game, and you are more likely to put it into a collection. And I don't really care how you rate it. If it's 1 star, it's also okay. It's more about, does this game motivate you to do something? Because the worst case is, you play this game on itch, you see it's not good, and you don't care about it, and you close it immediately. Usually, if a game you don't care about, you don't review. It's just a game that makes you angry that you like to review. And yeah, and with that, I kind of made this engagement metric, where I just was calculating, okay, how many plays did this game need for 1 person to leave a rating and for 1 person to leave a collection. And I just kind of aggregated this and compared it to the other games we had on itch. And there you can see already, for example, big differences. Dome has a way worse engagement than Lavender Fields. So Lavender Fields in itself had better ratings, and maybe it's even the better game than probably it is. I would say it is. But it's way less appealing. And that's not something we could know just from the ratings or just from looking at the game. It's something that needs to be tested against the market, basically. Importantly, data is always lying, kind of, as soon as you try to interpret what it means. And one thing I could already see is that the more views a game has, the worse the engagement gets. And I assume this is because only people looking for that specific genre are playing Lavender Fields, for example. But Dome, with that many views came also from being on the front page, where just a generic audience is seeing that game. So the fit between game and player is worse. So it always needs a human to interpret also. Okay, on player comments. So again, we are still trying to validate a prototype. Is it good or is it bad, right? And we are trying to form this holistic view. So we are taking all these little things and put them together. Player comments, sometimes we have these comments in the category A. It's a nice game, and graphics are great. It was fun, it's a cool concept. So the comment is friendly and polite. And that's really bad. The players do not care about this game. They're just friendly. So what we like much more is comments of type B, saying, bring this to Steam, expand this. Seriously, when will it be on Steam? I played it for 60 minutes and I keep coming back every month or so. I'm angry that there's no save system. I demand feature X, you lazy devs. So these are a lot more hostile, but we really like this. We want this. It's a great game because the players invested. They have a desire here. And they want more of this. And that's way better than just something nicely said. And in the first game jams, it's very easy to read the comments of type A and think, yeah, this is a good game. Let's expand this. All the feedback was good. So we should make this game into a full game. But that's not really the case. Comment A, I would not want to make into a full game. Then media reception. That's not super usual, but sometimes, for example, one game jam of ours, game jam game, it appeared on Rock Paper Shotgun. So it got an article, which was pretty insane for us. It's not incredibly important to only pick a game that can have a Rock Paper Shotgun article, but it's one positive point in trying to validate, is this a good game that we should continue on? YouTube pickup and performance is another one. So we released this game on itch. There are people looking at itch games who make YouTube videos for these. And if they do make a video on your game, that's already good. That's already a good validation. And then there's also the second layer to this. Basically, that's the view count. What I'm doing there is I'm checking, okay, how many subscribers does this channel have? And more importantly, how many views does their average game get? And for this one, for Idle Cup, it was like, yeah, his average views were around 20,000. There are sometimes also much better games, sometimes worse, but on average, it's 20K. And he made a Tristram video, and that was pretty crazy because it had 400,000 views. And that just meant, okay, it was kind of viral on YouTube. So YouTube kept recommending this video to more and more people. And what can happen then, so for one, it's good because the YouTube algorithm also measures engagement in a way. So you already know, okay, your game is kind of engaging. Also a video on your game is engaging. And what happens then, or what can happen, is also that other YouTubers, they watch other YouTubers. And if they see a game is hot right now and it's overperforming, they are likely to make a video themselves because they also would like an overperforming video. Everyone on YouTube wants more views, or maybe not everyone, I'm not sure. Generalizing is bad. Then also important, do we feel passionate about this game? Does it not let go? We do have games where we have, like, it's 2 or 3 years since we made them, and we still think about them every so often. And we do have games we finished in a game jam and immediately forgot about, and we never think about them, just with sad feelings, maybe. So this is really important. I recently heard someone say, like, you don't need to like the game you're making. And I fundamentally disagree. I think you have to like the game. You really need to want to make this game, to basically make it. I mean, make it in the sense of being successful with it. Then, of course, it's also important, okay, do we have a vision for a full game? Sometimes we might make a game jam game, but don't know how we could expand it. And then it's not good to kind of force something in. It needs to be kind of natural. And then also, okay, do our skills match what's needed to make a full version of this? It's one thing to have a great idea for a game. It's another thing to have the right team for this idea you have. So I'm much more inclined, and we had this with PVKK, right? PVKK was not something where we decided, okay, we have to make PVKK. It was more of a natural thing of checking, okay, we have the skills for this, and we have the passion for this. So let's try this for a month. Also validating prototype, talking about the game. So this is an author, a book author, Chuck Palahniuk. Maybe some of you know him. He wrote very many books. And his most popular is probably Fight Club. And he has an interesting method. He's a kind of a liar, maybe. He goes to parties and then he tells the story of a book idea of his, but he tells it as if this actually happened to him. So for Fight Club, he would go in and say, I recently got punched randomly by this dude, and then we were fighting, and that was so exhilarating, or something like that. And he, what he's aiming for is, he wants to see if people react to the story, if they engage, and if they add like their own experience to this. If the people go like, yeah, cool story, and turn around and go away, it's not book material, I think. So it's much more, okay, they can emotionally connect to this. And we noticed very much the same when we talked about PVKK to people. We thought this was a really silly idea and a silly project. It was just a, I don't know. We didn't have a plan of making a cool game with this. But whenever we talked to people about it, they connected with this fantasy and got excited and also added their own ideas to this. So this was a super early validation point. And that's something, like that's a validation point that's available before writing the first line of code or drawing the first image. It's just the idea. Yeah, and that's basically all the things we take together to form a holistic view. As I said, you cannot put a number to this. It still needs to basically give you a feeling about the game and compare it to others. And it might be that, and for us it was the case, we made 9 Game Jam games and none of them would have passed this test. Only the 10th was then Dome Romantic, and that kind of worked out. And then since then, our kind of hit rate got better, but we are still making crap Game Jam games that are on a polished and good level, but that no one wants to play. And we cannot predict this. That's it. Thank you so much. I have the slides to share if you want. As I said, I like to be challenged on these. So if you have questions or want to challenge some of these statements, please do.
Thank you so much. It gives a lot of food for thought, and it's great to have the slides to like let it live a bit. One of the things I was wondering about is that you said what you did with player data and feedback, but what I did not get was how do you get the players to play? Because you said HIO, for instance, but do you have like, do you have ad hoc events for testing, or do you have your Discord because they're like, oh, I like their game, so I want to know what they do next? What's your method?
Yeah, that can be many sources. So if you are in a game jam, naturally in the game jam, other people will play your game. In Ludum Dare, you want to get ratings for your game, and the best way to do it is play the game of other people. So that's one. Then, if you have itch and 100 people played your game, and you have Discord, you maybe get 10 people on your Discord. And that can be enough. For Dome Keeper, when I said we refined Dome Keeper, we had 10 to 20 playtesters. And that was enough to make the game good enough that a publisher or a Fury wanted to sign this. So we don't need 1,000 people. And then what's also always available, of course, let a friend play with a grain of salt, because they are friendly. They are not unfriendly internet people that are great. And we also, for example, with PVKK, we had an incredibly early prototype on an expo. that was very cheap to go to for us. So, and we had 100 people play this on the expo floor. And before that, we didn't know if people really connected with. That was way before the announcement. And we didn't know if people would enjoy this process of pressing buttons and needing to figure out how the cannon works and such. And there we learned, yeah, people enjoy this.
Thank you.
Yeah. I could have told you before that I have the slides ready to share, right? But it's good for me to see who's making a photo. Then I know what's interesting.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you very much for the talk. I was wondering, how did you include the prototyping system in your basically the company life? How many, like, do you always do Ludum Dare? Do you do other game jams? Do you wait until a project is finished to do prototypes, or what's the?
Yeah, we just take a break from the main project to participate in the game jam. We are kind of focused on Ludum Dare, which is 2 or 3 times a year. It always depends a bit. It always changes a bit. And then it's just, okay, let's spend a weekend on a new prototype, anyone who likes in the team. So it's kind of flexible. And I did miss 2 of them in the past 8 years. So that's also fine. But we also have sometimes, for example, the last work week of December before going into Christmas holiday, we spend just for fun on a prototype. So that's we don't do it between big projects. One big benefit of this is also it's a kind of creative break that you need to, like a breath of fresh air in the big and difficult project. And then you got to be creative. But then also if you go back to the main project, it feels better again because then you appreciate all the things you already solved. So I like it a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you for this great talk. I was wondering, it was really interesting to see the study that you have on Lavender Fields versus Domekeeper, and that it's much more engaging and people like it more. Do you think actually that there's like a hit game, a gem hidden behind Lavender Field that with like maybe a small but fundamental change in fantasy or setting could suddenly show itself?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm not sure. So it could be that just the visual presentation is not appealing. It could be that the framing of this is not appealing, but I'm not sure. It could also be that the audience for this that would like this is just a lot smaller. And with that, I mean, we could make Lavender Fields also, but then we should limit it to half, like a project that's half a year, and we should not take 2 years with it based on the information we have if we want to make this. So I think at that point it would need more testing, like try a different art style. How does it feel like if it's 3D with just slight 2D elements in it or something like that?
And that will be all for the questions. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.